broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you've logged in from today. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Carrie Simpson, and I'm the CEO of Managed Sales Pros. Today, I'm joined by Jim Turner. I'm going to introduce him in a minute. Is everybody able to hear me okay? If somebody could just type into the little box like, yes, we can hear you, that would be great. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We're just going to give it another minute. There's still some people coming into the room, so I'll be with you in just a moment. Jim, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for volunteering to be our guinea pig today. So
I didn't really have anywhere else to go.
I don't think anyone does right now. So one of the reasons we started the Wartime CEO series, and one of the things that I liked most about the descriptive nature of the title, was that even before this had happened, we had been talking about the differences between, quote unquote, peacetime CEOs and wartime CEOs, and how did people behave differently in different environments. And I don't know that we've ever had a more aggressive trial by fire for organizations as we are right now. I mean, we've all gone through recessions, at least anybody in my age group, which is, obviously 29 again. Anyone in my age group has lived through at least one recession, and it didn't hit as aggressively as this one is going to. So I guess depending on who you're listening to and what you're reading right now, there are some dire predictions about where the market's going to go. And while I don't want to hop on board the angst bandwagon, I certainly want to do everything that I can to prepare our business for an unprecedented economic downturn. Now, one of the reasons that an economic downturn is great for an organization like mine is that most people don't grow up dreaming of becoming telemarketers, right? Like nobody dreams of the glamorous job they're going to have one day, cold calling managed service providers to find out if they want to buy more data, right? Like, so now all of a sudden at 11% unemployment, the people that would not have considered telemarketing as a viable career choice may be on the market. So for me, there are some positives, and that's something I'd like to focus on later in the webinar. Let's talk about not just the challenges that are going to come with this, but what are the great opportunities that we may not be focused on looking at this. So for those of you who don't know Jim Turner, Jim is the CEO of Hilltop Consulting. And Jim, Hilltop Consultants. I keep doing that to you. And I'm going to let Jim tell you a little bit about his managed services practice, how he grew it, size, number of employees. Jim, please.
Sure. So Hilltop Consultants is a managed services provider focused on the legal. We have just under 100 employees, and we are based out of Washington, D.C., but through acquisitions, we've moved into the Philadelphia and Atlanta markets. We've been in business, we'll be at 17 years come May 1st.
So you've seen a recession or two in your time.
Well, we went through 2008 was a big year for us. It was when there was the last major downturn in the economy, and at that time, one of the things I remember is that we lost our biggest client, and it was to a point where, in a meeting when I was explaining to our staff how we lost that client, that we were either going to have to replace that revenue within 90 days, or we were going to have to lay off people from the team. And that's when I really got focused on learning how to really develop business and I had to stop being the tech running around fixing things and focus on finding new clients, finding revenue. And well, here we are. So we made it through that. We did not have to do any layoffs at that time.
So just starting from that time, what did you learn in 2008 that easily applies to what we're experiencing now in 2020? What were the big 3 takeaway lessons that you learned from your first economic downturn?
Well, I guess this is a lesson not just from the economic downturn, but just in general. We avoid the whales. You should never have one client that represents more than 20% of your revenue, because things go wrong that are outside of your control. Sometimes your techs screw up. Sometimes the business gets a new office manager that has another MSP that they want to work with. So if you ever put yourself in a position where if something goes wrong, you could lose 20% of your revenue, whether you deserve it or not, you're in a kind of a dangerous spot right there. So that's one thing. Something else is make sure that you know what size client you want to focus on. And I would say this. Yes, there's lessons to be learned, and because we're focused on what to do when you're in a bad situation, you know, the wartime CEO, the best thing to do is to avoid the situations during peacetime. Don't put yourself into a position where you're fighting to get out of a negative situation. So make sure that you're choosing your clients properly. In our case, it was focusing on the legal vertical. For us, we've had very little loss of revenue with COVID-19 because law firms are still there. They're still billing their clients. They're able to work remotely. They're not dependent on people coming to visit their office, like people that are servicing hospitality or retail. So picking your clients, not just on their line of business, what they do, but also on their size. So if you're a 10-person MSP, you should not be servicing 200 user clients. It's just, or especially not if you're offering 24/7 help desk or something that requires a lot of staffing. Just have to know your clients, make sure that you're getting the right ones, because if they're not a good fit and something goes wrong, you're going to be struggling to support those clients to keep that revenue, neglecting the other clients that were a better fit for size or vertical, and then you're going to lose them as well. So you can have a real negative effect when you have the wrong clients. And then I guess the last thing that I've learned is no great mystery here, but cash is king. Make sure that you have money to weather these bumps. You know, make sure that you have the money if none of your clients were able to pay their bills or all the clients were paying weeks or months late. Make sure that you have enough money to pay your rent, pay your employees, pay for any tools or services that you're providing for your clients to make sure that they don't get shut off. If you're paying a CSP for your Microsoft Office 365 and you don't pay that bill, then suddenly all of your clients lose their email, you're going to be in a really bad situation. So you need to make sure that you have cash, make sure that you have credit available for when these downturns occur.
I can't even tell you how much of a game changer that's been for us, because if this had happened 2 years ago, my company wouldn't have survived it. Period.
Right.
We were still, I mean, we weren't payroll to payroll, but we were not in a position where we could have kept the doors open if we'd lost the kind of, if we'd taken the hit that we took in March of this year, 2 years ago, we would have been out of business by probably June. And we're not going to be in that position, and I'm wildly grateful for that. But I actually, as a business owner, didn't know anything about finances for the first 4 or 5 years, and I ended up working with people in my EO forum. I went like every week. One of the people in my forum counseled me on what I should be doing with my money to prepare for stuff like this, and I listened to him and I did prepare. So I mean, we're in an enviable position of being ready to hunker down and wait this out. But I think, like a lot of companies, I'm trying to think about what we can do now to take advantage of the fact that other organizations that didn't prepare as well are going to be struggling. So you mentioned something, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But you mentioned that the first thing that you had done to prepare was to collaborate with local providers. Can you tell me a little bit about what initiated that? How did you think about it? What's it doing for you now? And how would you recommend other people implement it?
Right. So a lot of people are members of peer groups, and one of the things that these larger peer groups seem to want to do is not put people from the same geographic area in the same peer group, because they can't know anything about my business. They might steal my clients. They might steal my employees. They'll know my weaknesses. I've been in those peer groups before, and I understand. I just don't necessarily agree with it all the time. So in the DC area, months ago, before any of this was on anybody's radar, I had reached out to my local competitors, sometimes one-on-one, that I would have lunch with them, get to know these people. And even a few months ago, I proposed that we all go out to lunch one day, and several of the MSP owners in my area got together to have lunch, and that was fine. Well, once things started to get a little hairy because of COVID, I set up a Microsoft Teams channel with those same people. Because you know what? If there's something going on in the city, I think it'd be great if the CEOs of the MSPs could communicate. If one of us heard that something was about to happen, and I'm not necessarily saying trading on gossip and spreading rumors, but a lot of these guys are in the know. They know people. So as we know what's going on with the stay-in-place orders, or if we know that the federal government's about to come out with something else, we just found that it was helpful to have that communication. And then also by communicating with both my local peers as well as I'm still a member of a larger peer group, communicating about information on PPP and EIDL, the federal loan programs that are available for small businesses that are going to help people to get through these challenging times. It's been very helpful to share information there. I also feel that when you know people, it's a little less likely that they're going to be shitty to each other. You know, there's going. No, it just happens. You know, it's very easy when you don't know people to automatically assume that that CEO of that other MSP, man, what a jerk. He steals content from my website. He tries to hire my people. He's in there trying to sell to my customers. But you know what? We're all trying to sell to each other's customers from time to time. Sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it's intentional. But when we put faces and personalities to that name, I think it's more likely that we're going to be decent to each other, and that right now we're not going to aggressively try to poach each other's employees or use scare tactics to chase the clients and cause problems where there are none. So I like to be decent with my competitors, and I think that they're all decent with me. And as they're going through changes in their organization, it's good to hear directly from them, and also to hear from the challenges, because maybe there's something I can help with.
I know that we've been in contact with a lot of our competitors through this. If I could, if they've displaced some of their best talent because they couldn't support them, I would hire them right now, right? I could use 5 more callers yesterday. So having a good relationship with the people in my industry won't hurt me right now. Whereas if a client was going to leave before, and now, one of my competitors is aggressively going after them, they might be a little more inclined to leave. So, it's been good for us to communicate openly with the other people in our space right now. Like, there's only a handful of people that do managed services lead generation. There's no point in making enemies of any of them. And I think the MSP space, as somebody who actively calls into your market, for example, on behalf of one of your competitors, it's interesting when we come across a lead where we know the person who it currently has the business, because we know a little bit about their strengths and weaknesses. We know all kinds of stuff, and we can't really pick and choose what opportunities we present or don't present, but we can certainly try to maintain the best possible relationship with all of our current and past clients. It's not like we can go, hey, Jim, your client's thinking about leaving, but the person that you've engaged with would hopefully give you that courtesy. Like, do you have some sort of, not right of first refusal, but how do you approach that when you encounter one of your competitors' prospect, or I guess your competitors' clients, a prospect for you, and it's obvious that they're struggling with their relationship? Are you going to give them a heads up? How do you mitigate that?
So usually I feel like it's a little bit different. Usually it's, I've identified a client that I don't want to work with anymore, and then I reach out to my guys and I ask them to call. And that's and it's reciprocal. We've seen that. I find that when we lose a client, not because of another MSP called them, or that an appointment setting service called them, it's because something is wrong with the relationship. people don't go out looking unless something is wrong. It's painful to change MSPs, especially when we work with law firms, because not all the MSPs know the software, not all the MSPs know the business process, the workflow, and the people are challenging, in the legal environment, dealing with nothing but lawyers. So, but once in a while, there's some of the guys that are in our area, they do some work with some law firms, and that's fine. And we've had clients go to them, and we've had clients come from them to us. There's been times where we've something we've done is, when I said being very selective of our clients, is we know what size clients that we want. And in some cases, there have been in Philly, after I did my acquisition there, we knew that we didn't want to work with law firms with less than 25 users and no time and materials. The company that we acquired there, they had some of those clients. They were legacy clients that were with them from the very beginning. Maybe they were with them for 20 years. They weren't a fit for us. We want more than 25 users, and you have to be on managed services. We weren't going to go there. So we let the clients know, all right, it's not a good fit. And then if we knew of a good local service provider, and maybe they were a smaller MSP that wanted smaller clients, or maybe they were still taking on time and materials work, we let them know, hey, this client, we've let them know that they've got 90 days to find a new IT service provider. Maybe you should call them. Or we would provide the clients with a list. Here's 5 different MSPs or different companies in the Philly market that you should give a call, because we don't want to leave anybody in a lurch, and we know it's hard to find people. We wouldn't necessarily recommend one over another, but we'd say, you know what, these are 5 companies that we think could be able to help you. You should reach out to them. So I never worry. I never worry about if you're calling my clients. I never worry if the other MSPs are. If there's a client that's unhappy because of something we did or something they did, or it's just not a fit, we usually know when they're on their way out. So it's all good.
So you've already got kind of warning bells, and you're expecting the loss at some point, regardless.
What is that they say? If you think your wife's cheating on you, she's cheating on you.
She may as well be. Yeah.
There's a reason. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure all of us are missing our side pieces now. I don't know. So everybody that's on the call today, we have, there's about 30 MSPs on the call today, all of different sizes, all from different areas. And the questions that I have up on the screen right now, feel free to participate, guys that are on the call. If you look on the right-hand side of the panel, there's a place where you can type in answers to questions. Feel free to participate, or just feel free to listen along. But I'd like to know at this point, if you're open to sharing it, what's changed for you in the last 30 to 60 days? How many seats have you lost? And this is anonymized. I'm not going to announce your name and how much revenue or what percentage of revenue you've dropped in the last little while, but for personal sake and for the series, it'd be interesting to know, where are people, and does the size of company, for example, affect the percentage of revenue loss? So Jim, you were saying that you haven't experienced that yet, but I know that for many of our clients have.
Yeah, well, I've spoken with other MSPs through peer groups and other forums that have seen significant losses in the number of seats under management. We've seen that some MSPs are getting pressure from their clients to cut their monthly rate. What we've really seen is a reduction in project revenue. Well, in project revenue in the pipeline. Initially, there was a big burst of projects, people needing better remote access, or if they were sitting on a project to enhance the remote access, suddenly they're signing it. And that might have been the addition of multi-factor authentication to the remote access solution, or adding licenses for remote desktop, or if they have a VPN solution, adding that, some new firewalls, things that would enhance the remote user experience. So a lot of that happened. We had just, we really, recently finished up our Windows 10 push and moving people to Office 365. You're getting rid of all the end-of-life projects from Microsoft. There were some stragglers there, but most of that was already done. So initially a big push to get remote access, but we're looking at other projects slowing down right now. So that's the way we've experienced it. But what I've heard from other MSPs is definitely that they have clients that are letting them go because they can't operate. Imagine if you were an MSP that focused on working with dentists and all the dental offices are closed, or if you focused on working with gyms, fitness centers, all those places where people are touching each other and there's a lot of sweat and whatever else. Well, those things were the first to go. So that's a rough position to be in. With the lawyers, we have a little bit more stability because they're not going anywhere. The lawyers will be.
Lawyers I know are busier than they've ever been right now.
Yeah, well, I've heard of some practice groups. Some, within law firms, you might have a large firm that has different practice groups. You might have a group that deals with bankruptcy, another one that deals with commercial leases, another one that deals with, family law. So you might see a dip in one, but not across the board. So that's what we're finding, is that different groups within law firms might be busier than others. But we have not had any law firms that have really told us that they've had a significant decrease in revenue to the point where they're trying to renegotiate contracts. I guess it could happen. It's still pretty early, but right now.
Imagine my lawyer cutting me a break on anything.
Yeah, exactly.
My lawyer's awesome, but he's also, he's a busy guy. I can't imagine him keeping me if I came to him and said, hey, that bill, do you mind if I just don't pay it? So I'm finding it interesting that, we went proactively to our client base and said, hey, we understand we're probably the biggest item on your line card right now, and we'd rather you, I want to keep my team employed through this. I'm sure they want to keep their team employed if possible. So my hope is that the companies that can afford to come back in 90 days do come back, and the ones that couldn't afford to come back, we would have lost them anyhow. So there was no point in trying to scratch and claw and drag and keep people into an agreement that may create insolvency for them.
I will say this, that I've been pretty happy to see the response from the vendors in the MSP channel about their willingness to accommodate the MSPs. I've gotten calls from some of my vendors saying, hey, do you need 3 months to pay the next invoice? Or, we resell a backup and disaster recovery solution. Well, I've got to say, my rep there, he was great. Jim, what can we do? We don't know how this is affecting you. You're a great partner. What do you need from us? So that's been something that's been really great to see coming from the channel.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting quarter for everyone. Thank you to the people who entered their answers regarding MRR, and what the common response through this, Jim, was that people haven't seen an MRR loss yet, but they've definitely, like yourself, they've seen project loss. So the projects that were on tap for the next year have all been canceled. So it's if you're a large percentage of your business was not monthly recurring at this point, it looks a little bit painful. And people are saying that ConnectWise proactively reached out and deferred for 90 days. That's kind of cool. I know that Kaseya has been offering some pretty aggressive incentives as well. Just full disclosure, ConnectWise and Kaseya, neither are my partners, so I'm not, plugging them either way. I'm just saying what I'm hearing on the webinar. Somebody just mentioned ConnectWise offered a 90-day deferral, and this morning somebody let me know that Kaseya had offered them a full year of deferral. So there's a lot going on in the market right now. If you were thinking about making a change, people are pretty accommodating right now. I think that everyone's kind of bracing for that longer term income loss. So software companies are going to feel it too. They're going to feel it third wave though. I know our clients, it'll hit our clients, and then it'll hit you, and then it'll hit your vendors, right? As we all adjust to a new normal for a little while. For staffing, so we talked a little bit about you haven't lost any MRR, but you are losing projects. How are you dealing with staffing around that? So again, for people watching at home today, were you were you able to keep all your staff? Did you have to furlough some of them? Are you laying them off, or did you have to terminate them completely? Are you people applying for the PPP loans? And if so, will they be calling people back? And
Right.
if you just talking percentages, guys, if you want to put your percentage in, like what percentage of your team, if any, did you lose through this, or do you expect to lose in the next 90 days?
Right.
Jim,
So
you go ahead and just tell us.
I'll put it out there. One of the first things that we did in watching this and seeing that the project pipeline was drying up is we reached out to our staff to see if anybody wanted to go on a voluntary furlough. There were some people that they took a look at the situation, and there were specific reasons where they said, you know what, if we could take off for 3 months, that it would be beneficial to them. So we had people that volunteered. Right now, what they're doing is they're working on their certifications. They're staying home with their kids because perhaps there's a reason why the other spouse wants to continue working, but they need somebody to stay home with the kids. We had somebody who has a pregnant wife at home, and he didn't want to take the risk of whether he got sick from COVID or something else and brought it home. And if he's in an area where the hospitals are overwhelmed and he's got a pregnant wife that might get sick and have to go to a hospital, he didn't want to take that chance. Now, we have stay-at-home orders, but we're essential. IT is essential, so there's a chance that if your role in the company happens to involve going on site to clients, that you might be expected to go on site. And if there's a concern that you might bring home some bug to your house, it made perfect sense to me. With the programs that are being offered for both through the states and the federal government for unemployment, where you might get your unemployment payment as well as I think an additional $600 or so from the federal government, and then the $1,200 stimulus checks. Some people thought that it might be worthwhile for them to do it. And we did this because we looked at what the project pipeline was going to be, and if we knew that we weren't going to need them to do that work, and we weren't going to need anybody to go on site, it made sense to offer that. And what that's allowing us to do is make sure that should we see a significant drop-off in monthly revenue, which should happen with the reduction of projects, even if we don't lose the MRR, if we lose the project revenue, want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in a good position so that we can outlast whatever the challenges are. The day to start saving money because of reduced revenue is not the day that you see the reduced revenue. It's before. Make sure that you have the money so that you can counter that situation should it occur. And everybody should be, all the MSPs that are less than 500 users, they should be applying for the PPP program, the payroll protection, and that they should also be applying for the EIDL. They don't have to accept the EIDL if they get the PPP and they don't want to have a loan that they're going to have to pay back. It is over 30 years, and I think a 2.5% interest rate. It's probably better than their mortgage.
Better than my mortgage.
Yeah, there's options out there, and everybody should be investigating these. And I would imagine that they're all seeing webinars and emails, and from their CPA, from their lawyers, from other people in the industry. Everybody's offering to give advice on this. Even the banks, although the banks are struggling to fill the demand for assistance in applying for these loans, every MSP should be looking at these options, especially the PPP. Because if they use that money to pay their payroll in 8 weeks, it's free money. They should be looking at it.
It's as a Canadian citizen, I don't qualify for the PPP loan at all. So that's too bad, because I actually, a couple of friends have been approved for it since. So there was this big scramble for everyone applying, and then a constant did anyone get it? Did anyone get it? Has anyone got that $10,000? So has anyone on the call today applied for the PPP loan, and has anyone seen that initial $10,000 deposit? It looked like there was $1,000 per employee up to $10,000 as an immediate advance on the EIDL, and then the PPP loan was secondary. But SBA is constantly, I've received emails constantly from the SBA updating me on what's available, how to apply for it, how it gets converted into a grant, and similar. So I imagine there's got to be a bunch of people on the call who are experiencing it a while. Oh, so somebody said that they did receive the EIDL initial deposit last night.
Nice.
Companies have applied for both, not received it yet. Applied on the first day, hasn't received it yet. So I wonder how
What
they're
we're finding,
prioritizing.
what I'm seeing, a lot of this has to do with your bank, how quickly your bank was able to process the applications. If anybody's using Wells Fargo, I understand that that's really challenging. Wells Fargo is facing financial limitations in their ability to service these loans due to some challenges they had with their accounts. I guess that was last year or 2 years ago. They were facing some penalties. So I've heard Wells Fargo is challenging. My bank, our application is being processed. We haven't gotten it yet, but we haven't seen any problems. It's just waiting. I don't know anybody who's received the PPP money. Maybe one has. I'd have to double check to see what they said on it. But most of the people, it was that they're just waiting for the applications to be processed right now. You know, this $349 billion is being made available. Over $200 billion has been allocated, and they're already talking about the next batch of funding at another $250 billion. It seems to me, you know, just watching the press conferences, that there's a commitment from the federal government to make sure that money's available for everybody who wants to borrow it. They can't be seen as picking winners and losers and giving money to some and not to others. That would just be a public relations disaster. But people have to work with their banks to figure this stuff out. And if their banks aren't the best at providing information, there's so many other resources, whether it's within the MSP channel or talking to their accountants, talking to their attorneys. Everybody's looking at this, and it's not just the managed service providers, obviously. I've got a good friend who owns a fitness boot camp, and they've got resources available to them that are helping them figure this out, you know, and how it applies to their business.
Yeah, I can't even imagine if you had just launched your MSP this year, right? Like people that left their jobs, launched new businesses, and now this. Starting a business is hard enough in regular times, but I'll look forward to hearing the founder stories 5 years from now in EO about the crisis, and I lost my job, and then I did this, and oh, it worked. Those are my favorite kinds.
I feel like a year from now, there's going to be some great stories about whether it's the businesses that have made it through, the relationships that people have built, whether it's personal relationships or business relationships, vendor relationships. I just feel like people are getting forged in fire this year, and they're going to come out incredibly strong on the other end.
So one of the things that you mentioned first was that you were collaborating with other local MSPs. And then we talked a bit about, hey, how are we going to change strategies based on an unknown future, right? Like they're not, I guess nobody ever knows what the future is going to hold. But in this case, right now, we don't know if we're going to be shut down for another 30 days. If, you know, is the economy going to kick back in slowly? Is it going to come back faster? Are we going to be prevented from even gathering in groups for the next year? How will that affect your marketing plans, your sales strategies, your interactions with your peers, your prospects, your current clients? So I think first we were going to talk a little bit about, so we were going to talk about the PPP loan and the EIDL loan. So some people on the call have had those deposits hit their banks already. Let's see, M Street Bank was a recommendation from one of the people on the call today, saying that they're reserving the amounts via the SBA loan within 36 hours and confirming things. Somebody mentioned that credit unions aren't participating, although I do know a few credit union members who did receive that loan. And then somebody made a comment that they're interested in seeing how M&A goes over the next little while. So what are your thoughts around what's going to happen with M&A in the managed services market, Jim?
So M&A, I think that the buyers are going to be looking for bargains right now. They're going to be looking to see who is, they're shaking the tree to see who's ready to sell now with an uncertain future. And if somebody can bank $1 million by selling their company, they're going to be looking for discounts right now. We're, as an MSP, we are aggressively contacted by the private equity firms, by other MSPs that want to build out a legal vertical, a legal practice group within their MSP. A lot of the big guys are looking to do this. So we constantly get contacted. I've seen no reduction in the frequency of those contacts. People still want to acquire. That's what I've seen. Now, I've heard in conversations when I've talked to some of these guys and listened on some of the webinars, there's some concern that the private equity funds may not have the credit available that they might have had last year, and that you might see a reduction in the multiples of EBITDA that you might get if you sold your MSP. If previously you might have gotten 7 times EBITDA, well, maybe now it's 5 or 6. So why would if you didn't have to sell, would you sell right now at a lower multiple? That's I think what we're looking at.
Some of the most painful stories that I've heard through this were people who were, about to transact on exiting from their businesses, and it just disappeared overnight. Like they were in negotiations, there was a number, it was agreed upon, working out final details, and then boom, gone. I can't even imagine putting myself back together after like mentally exiting my business, thinking finally, I did this thing, I've achieved it, I'm going to take some time to myself, I'm going to relax, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to spend time with my family, and then no, turns out I still have a business now. So I think
well, you know what, if that happened, does that mean that private equity or that investor was highly leveraged? They were only going to be able to use credit to complete the deal. They didn't have any of those cash reserves. And let's say the acquisition had gone through and there was an earnout or some other plan to get the money, it could actually end up worse had the deal not evaporated. So that there might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise right there for those guys.
That's what I tell myself about not being able to go surfing this summer too. So, probably something bad would happen. There were sharks. I don't know, but I'm sure that there will be a silver lining, a year from now, and ideally they exit and they're successful doing so, and the deal is just as good. But I agree with you that it could have been dodging a bullet. I'm sure it still doesn't make them feel any better when they go to bed at night right now.
Well, let me say this. The lessons that I learned in 2008 when we lost a big client and the economy was bad and everything else, we were not over $2 million in revenue that year. Now we're 10 times that size. We came out stronger from those challenges. We came out more focused. I came out with better understanding of how to grow my business, who to hire, who not to have on staff. I learned a lot of lessons there, and those helped me get to where I am now.
I'm just taking a look at some of the comments right now. Somebody would like to know if your local Teams group is open or closed. They're based in New York, and they'd be interested in chatting. And
I'd want to just talk to the other DC-based guys before bringing them there. But if they want to network with me, I'll talk to anybody. We have a couple clients in New York, so I would like to know what's going on in New York, so they can reach out to me directly.
Yeah, and I'll have Jim's contact information posted up at the end of the webinar for anybody who'd like to reach out to him directly. So let's assume for a minute, that you aren't where you are right now. You didn't prepare as well as you could have, and you're looking at some potential large decisions in the next 90 days of your business. If you are the CEO of an MSP right now that isn't in the enviable position that you're in, where you've got the cash stores to ride this out, where you've already done it a couple of times and you're well prepared for this event, how do you prioritize what happens next? So financially, are you looking at, do you reduce all of your staff right away? Or do you do this little by little? Like, what makes the most sense if you're staring down the barrel of, I'm not sure how viable my business is going to be in 90 to 120 days?
So there's a few different things. We did our voluntary furloughs, and that seems to have been very helpful. It's helping us prepare for the worst. In conversations, we have an outsourced HR firm that we work with, and we had a lot of conversations about how do you do this? What should your targets be if you're looking at furloughs or layoffs? And I think the general consensus was this: cut once and cut deep, as opposed to having multiple rounds of furloughs or layoffs, because that's going to be bad for morale for the people that remain. If everybody has to worry, say, oh, well, last Friday Bob got laid off. This Friday, is it me?
No.
Right. Just figure out the right number that you need to make sure that you have your cash reserves and without impacting your clients too much, and do it. Don't do it, multiple times over a period of weeks. And then, some people that I've talked to were looking at salary reductions. You got to be really careful with those, because those can also be very demotivating for the staff that wants to be on board. So just give that one a lot of thought and talk to an HR professional before you do any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Before you furloughs, layoffs, salary reductions, just make sure you have an understanding of what the potential unintended consequences may be. I know that I see lots of articles online about CEOs giving up their salaries or executives taking big pay cuts. You need to look at all that before you do it. And something that was really interesting is when you hear someone like the CEO of Disney giving up his salary, what does that really mean? That, well, were they getting much of a salary, or is most of their compensation in stock options? So are they really giving something up there? So just make sure you understand what you're doing there and that you get professional advice. And then something else is this. If you get the PPP money, and 75% of that PPP money has to go to payroll in 8 weeks from the day that you get the funds, I believe that works. But if you've reduced your payroll because you don't have the employees to pay, what happens then? Do you have to get creative as far as how you spend that money, bonusing out, and will there be repercussions from bonusing it? Because I'm sure that's not what the federal government wants. They don't want to give you $1 million and you pay $500,000 to the CEO. So you need to be, this is America, it happens. But we just need to be careful and make sure that everybody understands, if they get that money, what they're going to do with it. And if they have no payroll to meet, well, that's going to be a problem, because then they're going to have to pay it all back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens if, for example, you had a large subsection of your employment base get sick and decide not to return to work. I mean, that's certainly not something that you caused, but now you're 10 employees down and your convertible portion of your PPP loan is now an actual loan. So the grant that you were expecting, you don't get. So I've talked to a couple of companies who have some strategies around what they're going to do with that money. Like, for example, hold it until they figure out whether or not they're going to need it. Everybody applied, right? Everybody should have applied. And now people will figure out how they can best meter that out to help prepare for the future. But I mean, we won't qualify it for it, and we probably don't need it. I did give up my salary, and I did that because my team all furloughed their bonuses for a quarter. So I didn't feel comfortable taking my full salary while my team were adjusting their income. And then we had some of our highest paid assets said that they weren't prepared to do that. So we agreed to terminate them so that they could accept unemployment benefits. And so everyone kind of went away happy. The people that wanted to stay are invested heavily in the business, and they're working from home as best they can right now. And everyone else kind of carried on. So it was an interesting, who's in it to win it with us. That was maybe another unintended consequence, is you really find out who wants to be on the team. And if you're a traction company like we are, that gets it, wants it capacity, and then matches all the core values, that really, for us, those people rose to the top. Like the people that came out and said, yeah, let's do this. We'll figure it out. We're committed. That was kind of as a business leader, owner, it was very flattering to see that people were prepared to stay in it with me. So I'm hoping everybody has some kind of nice little hopeful stories like that, in addition to the some of the terrifying, we lost 50% of our revenue overnight. And our business is located in Las Vegas, where a lot of my peers lost their entire businesses overnight. They were aggressively dependent on tourism. So I have a company, for example, that in my peer group that does large Las Vegas events. That's all they do. They manage large events that come to Las Vegas, and just the social aspects of it. So if you've got 50 people coming to Vegas for a reunion and you want to create activities where all 50 people can be doing the same things all the time, that takes a bit of a coordination. That's what he was doing. And now that business doesn't exist, for the next foreseeable future. So I think we're fortunate to be considered essential services to start with. And it's something that companies are going to need regardless, right? If I think about our concerns around, we had some very real concerns when this first happened. We had to move people who'd never worked from home and didn't have appropriate work environments into their home office. We had to set up home offices for them. For some of them, we had to buy internet. We have some aggressive security protocols in our office that we had to work with our MSP now to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to, everything is locked down to IP address. What do we have to do now to keep our business secure and our clients secure and our team secure? There was,
Right.
an immediate, project that we had to invest in there. And now we're just kind of like, okay, that's settled. Now, how do we proactively manage what's next, right? We're going to have new people coming into the office. What are the things that we need to be thinking about now that we're going to move back to the office eventually, fingers crossed. Are people getting used to working at home? Do you think there's going to be any kind of pushback when you have to return them to their office spaces?
Well, I expect our clients, now that they've all done this, that there'll be more of a push for them to work remotely, because once they realize how effective they can be. Now, some people might say, no, I like to go to an office. I've been cooped up with my kids for 3 months. I don't want to do it anymore. Sure, there's that. But there's also people that say, wow, this wasn't that bad. My remote desktop, my cloud-hosted email or line of business applications, I get it now. I fully expect that we're going to see a change in the way that people do meetings. That all these people that have desktop computers in their office that didn't have webcams and the equipment to do effective web conferencing, I think that they're all going to want that now, because now that we're used to Zoom and the Microsoft Teams and using all these solutions, I think people are going to want to use it even when they go back to their offices. So that should be interesting to see.
I can't wait to get back to the office. And I mean, our team is, for those of you who don't know anything about our history, we hire almost exclusively out of workforce readiness training programs. So in the state of Nevada actually helps us run recruiting fairs, and there is a stipend that comes along with hiring people who are receiving any kind of benefits in Nevada. And that's our core talent pool. So they weren't really set up with, nice private home offices and internet. So not everybody has that ability to quickly pivot and go home. And we had to do some major work. Like, we had to help some people get into better apartments because they just weren't well suited for working from home in the spaces they were in. So like, as much as people are going to enjoy that working from home atmosphere, not every organization is going to be a suitable work from home spot. And like, obviously restaurants, you're not working from home there.
Right. Well, I would say one thing is, if you have multiple people working in the home and then kids going to school, making sure you have enough bandwidth. In my case, you may not see this, but I'm sitting in my son's bedroom right now. Here's his Legos. And I'm doing this because it's the one quiet place I can find right now to do this call. So there's first world problems. There's things that people have to figure out when everybody has to work remotely. My son is 11 and he's doing virtual, online classes through Zoom. My daughter's in high school; she's doing that. So finding a quiet place and making sure that you can be focused on work, and it is a little bit challenging. I think it'll be easier once the school's open, though. Once the kids go back to school, that if parents want to start working remotely after this is done, I think it'll be more attractive.
So Las Vegas schools shut before the work from home order went into position in Las Vegas. We had a full-blown child, like, we took the table out of the boardroom and set up a daycare center, right? People just brought their kids to work, and we all just kind of like, we had Tracy bouncing somebody's 2-year-old on her lap while she was making calls. And it was a really nice example of people coming together and being super tolerant of inconveniences or noise. For example, like right now, for the first time ever, we can all be on Zoom calls at home and not worry about our kids running through the background, because everybody's kids are running through the backgrounds.
Yeah.
So that's I think that there's a lot of like mutual, I don't know if kindness is the word that I'm looking for, but we're being a lot more tolerant of other people's situations than we ever have been. So hopefully that carries through into, the new economy with us, this ability to be a little more forgiving of people's situations. So sales and marketing was something we talked about before this. And you had mentioned that you're not actively or aggressively looking for new business right now. You're looking at managing your existing.
To some extent, that's where if I had to look at our focus, I'd say that we're probably 75 to 80% focusing on the clients that we have and making sure that our account managers are taking care of them. We're doing some marketing on whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or through our different associations. We in the legal world, there's associations for all these law firm managers, the firm administrators, the executive directors. So there's keeping in touch with them and making sure that we're communicating helpful information to them and building on the relationships within those organizations. What we're really steering clear of, though, is fear mongering and selling through fear. Or trying to take advantage of people's anxieties. One of my guys today forwarded an email that came in from some MSP or some IT company somewhere saying, are you experiencing poor tech support while you're working from home? And when I looked at this ad, first thing I realized is, well, it's not really targeted too well, considering that they're sending it to one of my VPs. That they're just throwing it all again to see what sticks. And that's, in my opinion, that's never effective. If you don't know who you're marketing to. And I've never heard of the company before either. So we're being careful. One of the things that I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm helping people in my community. I'm helping people in our target vertical, that we're being good to the clients that we have. And I think that there's opportunities as we start to emerge from this. We're going to see opportunities, and whether it's companies that have decided, we always fought having an MSP because we had in-house IT, but that one guy we had really struggled when everybody had to work from home. We lost that argument of, well, we want our IT person down the hall from us. That argument kind of goes out the window when nobody's down the hall anymore, and where all the support is done remotely. And that in-house IT guy is not available 24/7 like an MSP is. So there's going to be some opportunities. Let's just make sure that we're careful about the way that we approach it, that we're not emailing those firms right now saying, hey, fire that in-house IT guy and work with us. Meanwhile, they're going to feel that we're not really being kind and not judging the situation well. So that's what we want to be careful of. No, I understand nobody wants to completely stop marketing. You can't. But just I do feel like consideration should be paid to how you're doing it right now.
Yeah, we had to almost overnight change our talk tracks to be less aggressive around looking for holes in their IT support. So our usual process is, we talk to somebody and they normally say like, oh, no, we're good with what we have. And then our job is to find out, well, are they? And are they comparing apples to apples? And do they understand managed versus time and materials? And are they meeting quarterly? Are they getting their CIO support? Are they we'll just start picking, right? Like, how is this? How is this? How is this? How is this? And our goal is to just make them doubt that relationship a little bit, just enough to engage with another party. And I think you said this earlier, but if you're not in the market, you don't take that call, right? If you're not in the market, you don't have that conversation. You just shut it down and move on. People don't have time for sales calls unless they're in the market. And sometimes, right, weirdly enough, you'll have for us, for example, there are days where I don't like all of my vendors all the time. And I'm sure that, there's times where if you called one of my clients, they were dissatisfied with our service and they would make a move if you pitched them correctly or presented it to them in the right fashion. And our goal is just to gently and consistently remind people that they have choices. Overnight, we had to switch all of that. There was no room in the market anymore for being even remotely predatory, ambulance chasey, bitchy in any way, right? The whole thing was, hey, can we help you? What do you
Right.
need right now?
We're going out of our way. You know, I mentioned before that there have been clients that we looked at as our company has grown, that there were some businesses that weren't a good fit for us right now. And we had some that we were in the process of offboarding. We've actually put that on hold. I'm not going to force a client right now to go out and find a new IT company, even if I had them like 30 days into their 90-day offboarding. I said, you know what? Let's have this conversation again when we get through this, because we're in this together. You know, in some cases, especially if they were people that were out there helping the public. I guess a great example is, you know, plumbers aren't really our thing, and I had a plumbing company that was on their way out. Said, you know what? These guys are out there. They're essential. You know, if your toilet breaks, you need somebody to come and fix it. And the last thing I want to do to that company that's out there, you know, someone putting themselves at risk, you know, going out into people's homes. Last thing I wanted to do was put them in a bad spot that I was going to cut off their IT if they didn't find somebody in time. So I said, you know what? Let's have that conversation later. It feels like the right thing to do right now.
Yeah, I don't think being kind is never a bad business development strategy.
Yeah, you know, and it's not necessarily going to be great for the profit margin, because some, you know, the clients that we don't want, there's a reason we want them to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it just wouldn't look good, I think, about casting somebody out when, you know, how are they even going to get a new company in to audit their system, to do a proper onboarding, to facilitate a transfer right now if the client can't go to the office themselves? How's that even going to work? So it just wouldn't be a good thing.
No, I think everybody's really been invested as a community in how do we do this in ways where, like, how do we think out of the box so that we can achieve the same results without that human interaction that's, you know, potentially going to be harmful, whether we know it or not. So I know, like, for us, for example, when we needed to move everyone home, we had somebody on the phone who walked our people through, okay, we sent the computers that they use at work home with them. That was significantly easier than trying to figure out how to, you know, there was no laptops to be had anywhere in North America like a month ago. So we sent
Right.
them home with these big bulky desktops and multiple monitors, and we had to have a VPN set up, and then we had to connect to it, and we had to have somebody from our MSP walk everybody, like, slowly and carefully through everything. And there are
Yeah.
days where we're still having those, like, at least in the office we have some, you know, some standard operating procedures set up around when can you call for tech support. Have you cleared your cache? Did you turn everything off? Did you turn it back on again? Did you log in? Did you log out? Have you checked your passwords? Like, there's a multi-step process that all the team goes through before they call for support. We don't have that at home. So, you know, my IT bill is going through the roof, but at least my people are still employed and working. And
Right.
that's priority one for us. If we can't make calls, then we're not going to be able to bill anyone. But the company was also really cool with us, and, you know, we don't have managed support on our call center workstations. We have managed security. And they
Right.
were like, yeah, no problem. We'll figure this out. We'll help you get set up. It was like a last minute. We don't have to close in Las Vegas. For some reason, call centers are not, I don't know, we're not essential, but we're also not, since we don't have external visitors that come to the office, we're allowed to stay open. We opted to send everyone home instead, just for safety's sake. So we had this last minute, like, okay, it's Saturday. Hi, can you please help us figure this out? You know, and they were
Right.
great to us. So, I mean, that you build a lot of loyalty through crisis.
Yeah, I
Companies
think
that are flexible, the companies that are, you know, forthcoming and just basically decent to everyone are going to do fine through this.
right. Yeah, just don't look for. Yeah, just be careful about how you approach finding opportunities right now, because I said this somewhere else that reputations are going to be made and broken in the next 3 to 9 months, and you can either be known as one of the heroes or one of the villains of the pandemic.
Now, you want to be on
Yeah.
the right side of history here. So.
Right. You don't want to be shitty at anybody. Hey, just one tip that I might have that I have for other MSPs is if there's going to be home users working from home computers, you don't have it because of your security requirements. but I know that there's going to be MSPs that have people that didn't have laptops available from their business, so they're using their own home computers to connect to Office 365 or RDP into the remote desktop servers. One of the things that I think was helpful for us is putting together information, just some minimum standards, some minimum requirements for your office managers or business owners to share with their employees, so that the MSPs can support them when they call in. Don't try to use your Windows XP computer, things like that. Or if you're using your home computer, you need to have antivirus. If you're going to let people use Office 365 on a home computer, well, man, you need to have multi-factor authentication enabled. Things like that. And we put together a blog post, and then we blasted it out to all of our clients just so they could share that with their employees, because I'd rather that 5,000 plus users read all of that, and if it reduces the number of help desk tickets coming in because they said, oh yes, I should make sure I have antivirus, anything like that that can reduce the ticket volume and increase the end user satisfaction. That's a good proactive approach to keep your help desk from getting buried in tickets.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for everyone. The final thing that I wanted to talk about today is our mental health as business owners and leaders in the middle of kind of an unprecedented time. Entrepreneurship is already hard on your families and your marriage and your mental health and your physical health. Jim, what are you doing to keep yourself safe and sane through this?
Oh, well, you knew me when I was much fatter.
I did.
So I've been working out. I made you update my picture. That's a big thing. I think people need to work out. I think that's been huge for us. And what we're seeing in the community is neighbors that we would never see. They're out riding their bikes, where people are walking their dogs. They're taking walks out in the park, keeping their distance. And that's something that I think is really important, because you don't want to stay in the house all day if you don't have to. So I think focusing on the fitness, the solution to our problems isn't stockpiling toilet paper. It's keeping yourself healthy, trying to be proactive about your health. So that's been big for us. And I do an online boot camp. I've got 4 bikes in the garage, and the whole family's going for bike rides now. We've been going hiking, we've got some great parks in the DC area. Keeping our distance from everybody else. And my poor dog, he won't make eye contact with us, because every time he does, we take him for a walk.
That's like the one escape that you have from your home at this point. And yeah. I've been enjoying a little bit of wandering about myself. But remember, everybody on the call today, right? Like, you're already dealing with all kinds of chaos. Like, there are people, like, don't lose connection with the people that matter to you through this, even though you're stuck at home and you're not in the office and you don't have the same levels of camaraderie or peer support. But I mean, the phone's right there, and I found it interesting, especially with I have a 20-year-old daughter who never uses the phone as an actual phone. Right? It weighs 1 million pounds. Trying to get that kid to pick up the phone and call somebody is impossible. But one of the things that I've really tried to do through this is make phone calls to people that maybe I don't ordinarily talk to my mother every day, and especially since she's retired now. But I'm making an effort to call my mom every day and just check in on her and ask her how she's doing, and where's her mental health.
You know what I've been doing is, the family stuff. I've been sending emails and text messages to clients and to employees. How are you? How is your family? Is there anything I can do? I've just before this call, I was texting one of my guys up in Philly. I know that he had a baby 3 months ago. Hey, how are you? How's the wife? How are the kids? Is there? He actually lives in Jersey. Is there anything that you need? Because they're on the stay-in-place order there. And let people vent a little bit. He told me about challenges, and the supermarkets don't have stuff, but he told me that he's in good shape. He's got a couple of freezers, and he's well prepared. And I let him know, look, if there's anything I can do, let me know how I can help. I've got family up in Jersey. If I needed to send my sister out to get him some masks or something like that, she'd be willing to do it. So I'm doing that with my employees, and I think that they'll appreciate that. And do it from a place of sincerity, not just because, hey, you heard on a webinar you should do it. Care about your people and try to help. And then the clients, remembering that they're not just a client, they don't just sign a check, that they have families, they have retired mothers that they're worried about. They've got all the stuff that's going on in your head is going on in their head too. Me personally, it's health. It helps my mental health to help other people. So I'm helping other businesses in my community, supporting the people that are, supporting the restaurants, supporting the gyms, supporting whoever I can. How can I use my resources, whether it's, helping you find some new customers, or, my gym, they do these Zoom workouts, they use Zoom and they record it and all that stuff. I'm teaching the other people on the gym how to get Zoom, or how to get their iPhones to sync up with their big screen TVs to make it easier. And it's kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
These people that I know that I work out with them, they had no idea what I did for a living. They didn't know that I know anything about technology. I'm like, hey, you know what? If you need help with this, let me help you do that. Or teaching them how to do the virtual backgrounds. That's a nice little distraction for me. So, just find ways to be good to more people, and I think that'll be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's again one of the unintended consequences that isn't going to be a terrible consequence. Maybe we just all end up a little kinder at the end of this. So we have a little bit of time for Q&A now. Now, Jim, you mentioned that you had an onboard to get to. How much time do you have left for us today?
I told them that I was doing this. So hold on, let me just take a quick look at the calendar. You know what? If I'm done by 12:30, I'm good.
Oh, yeah. No, that's when we're scheduled to end. So right now, if anybody has questions for Jim, they are you're welcome to type them in, and I will deliver them to him. And while we're waiting, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do next week on Wartime CEO. So Jim has graciously agreed to help facilitate moving forward. I thought it might be more impactful and meaningful to have another MSP talking about the space in a more knowledgeable way. So we're going to have MSPs of varying sizes and types participating over the course of the next 8 weeks. So next up is going to be Chris Barber, and he owns Cheaper Than a Geek in the Georgia market. Smaller MSP, it's a 5-person MSP, and he's going to come on and share how this has impacted his smaller IT company and the strategies that he's going to be focused on over the course of the next 90 days and beyond to not just survive this, but ideally come out better positioned for success in the future. So it looks like most people are running on to their next thing today, Jim. So I think you get 30 minutes of your day back.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I hope everybody got some value out of this today.
Oh, it was great. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right.
And everybody stay safe, stay healthy, be kind.